What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the late start. I'm sorry it was a little late. YouTube was down. It wasn't my fault. Sorry for the delay, but hey, YouTube's back, so I'm back. So welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of The Game Plan. This is the fantasy football show created for each and every one of you fantasy managers out there. I don't care if you play in one league or 20. The Game Plan is where you come each and every Wednesday night here on the Player Profile channel and help game plan and get those dubs in fantasy football. I'm the authentic one, your boy, Mr. Matty Kiwoom, and I am flying solo dolo today. So if anyone that is a long-time fan of the game plan, the folks that were here in Game Plan 1.0, you're used to this format. Me, my camera, my mic, by myself, live, doing the damn thing. And I love having Evan on. Evan's the man. Shout out Evan, feel better. It's nice to have a guy who's that smart with that much analytical background, all those numbers in his head. I love having him here, but he's under the weather. Either that or he's playing hooky so we could watch the Mariners. On to you. Either way, it's going to be a great episode. I'm going to be talking about the players to sell in fantasy right now. That's right, the fantasy time bombs, as I call them. I have 5 sell candidates that I'm going to talk about. And on top of that, I am going to bring back a segment that, again, if you've been here around for a while, you know what segment I'm talking about. So without further ado, let's get into it, okay? Start with the first sell player, the player that I'm selling right now. And the first guy on today's list, Bam Knight. We're going to start pretty shallow, okay, guys? We're going to start pretty shallow. We're going to start with a candidate that's quite obvious for selling, Bam Knight. Here's why, though. Let's talk about why I'm selling Bam Knight, why I'm not excited, even in the short term. 2 more games without Trey Benson. Still not excited for Bam Knight. I'm actually using those 2 more games of potential to move on from Bam Knight, and here's why. We're going to start with expected fantasy points versus fantasy points scored per game. His expected number is about a point less than his fantasy points per game, so he's being propelled by the touchdowns, and he has been propped up by the touchdowns. And you look to, you kind of look through the analytical profile. The sample size isn't really there per se. So we're just going to take what we have. We can only go off the information that is given. The evaded tackles per game number, less than 1, the juke rate, explosive rating, yards per touch, breakaway run rate, target share. All of these numbers are pretty deflated. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if at any point, in these next couple of games in which we're supposed to be relying on Bam Knight, he just kind of gives the keys back to Michael Carter or Amari DiMercato, or maybe they bring someone else in. I don't know. Either way, I'm selling. You might be asking, what the hell can I even get for a Bam Knight? So the game plan, we're really pretty redraft-centric, okay? In Dynasty, you can kind of maybe get a 4th or a 3rd, and that's probably where you're going to head that way. But in redraft, what can you sell them for? This is what I think you can sell for. Looking at some of the market share data, using the trade finder and the trade analyzer at playerprofiler.com, here's some of the things. Here's a trade that I'm chasing. So I'm looking for like a startable flex play. Okay, guy like a Kendrick Bourne, maybe even a Luther Burden. We saw Luther Burden look electric in just a handful of touches on Monday night. I would like to buy now before those prices continue to go up, especially with DJ Moore hurt. Shout out to my guy DJ Moore. Hope you're healthy soon. But we don't know what's in store for this offense, and we did hear reports that Luther Burden was going to get some more touches out of the bye. And I don't know if he got more touches, but he definitely got more fantasy points. So somebody that I can get in my flex, I'm moving that for Bam Knight right now, because Bam Knight is, if you're using him, if you're the person in your league that needs him, maybe it's a little bit tougher to sell. But as of right now, if I can, I am going to look to sell Bam Knight. The next player that I'm going to talk about does hurt me a little bit because I am a New England Patriot fan, and I do like rooting for this guy, and he's been pretty up and down, but there have been some ups. But before I talk about this guy, first I just want to say, if you have any start-sit questions, any lineup questions, you got to stick around to the end of the show. I'm starring each and every one of these. I'll get to all of them. Just because Evan's not here, I'm still going to go through every single one of those start-sit questions, trade questions, roster decision questions, all that. I'm here for you to help the fantasy managers, help you game plan for your fantasy football season. So I'm going to here to do that. So you're going to stick around to the end of the show. But if you don't got time and you want to, get your question answered and bounce on out here, go watch, I don't know, Grey's Anatomy, whatever's on, football ain't on. Super chat it. Leave that super chat, get it to the top list. I will answer it right then and there. But the next player that I am going to sell is Kayshon Boutte. Kayshon Boutte. Coming off a big game. So we're going to use that as a little bit of leverage to move off of Kayshon Boutte against New Orleans. 26.3 fantasy points, 5 targets, 5 receptions, 93 yards with 2 tutties. But first and foremost, we're going to start here in every single player. Let's look at his expected fantasy points per game and his fantasy points scored per game. 11 fantasy points scored per game this season, top 40 in the NFL. But his expected fantasy points are over a point less at 9.8. So about a point and a quarter less expected per game. So he's really being propped up by those touchdowns. So now we're going to look at some of the other factors. Has he really, what's his yards per route run? It's not really, doesn't really stack up amongst, in comparison to other players who are scoring 11 points per game. How does his, first downs per route run look? Not bad, but it's still, again, not as good as the fantasy points would have a more casual gamer to lead on. So we're going to move on. I don't love the analytics here. I don't love, hoping that they get touchdowns. Stephon Diggs, faded away of this past game, but he was coming off 2 heaters, which meant Kayshon Boutte went to the background. When did Travion Henderson get going? Does he get going? Ramondre Stevenson, does his run game in general get going? There's just a lot of moving parts surrounding this Patriots offense, and Kayshon Boutte looks like the perfect sell candidate, someone that you can move now at a little bit of a peak in terms of his value, because it is tough to sell these type of players in redraft, right? These guys that we picked up off the scrap heap, we probably held on after the first few games, hoping to use some of that production, to get some of that production. Didn't. It kind of faded. And now, all of a sudden, we're like, shit, we forgot to sell. Nope. Got another chance. So we're going to use that right now. And who am I selling Kayshon Boutte for? A boring tight end starter. And I know doesn't really have much sex appeal, talking about a boring tight end starter, but you might have lost Brock Bowers. You might have been streaming. You might be sick of streaming. You might be at a point now where you just want to get a player that you could play. I don't care how boring. I'm talking about the Dallas Goederts, Hunter Henrys, maybe even a Mark Andrews on by. I'm selling Kayshon Boutte to fill that slot because at this point, like I said, Kayshon Boutte was probably added off the waiver heap or picked up as a third piece in a potential trade early in the season. And at this point, it's probably your wide receiver 4, your second flex. You could probably fill a roster, a lineup without him. Get a tight end if you need it. Boom. Fill in a little bit of cracks there. If you have a tight end, if you're just kind of looking for BPA, best player available on the market, maybe like a decent upside handcuff, be moving him for a Blake Corum, maybe a Tyler Algier in Dynasty, looking for like a Dylan Sampson. These running backs that you can just stash, leave on the back end of your bench, and if there is an injury to the starter, all of a sudden you get a windfall, a huge return, a startable beast potentially. These are the rumblings of league winners. We don't know who it's going to be. That guy takes us down the home stretch. But we're already getting close. I mean, Halloween's only 2 weeks away, which means Thanksgiving's only a month away, which means Christmas is a month away. It's just going to be a bang, bang, boom, going to be gone. Last little archetype I'm searching for on the trade market with Kayshon Boutte is Romeo Dubes, Rashid Shaheed, Ramondre Stevenson. These are the guys if I need points right now. Maybe I even need to throw in a little bit of a kicker. Maybe your actual kicker if you're playing Dynasty Leagues. Either way, this is the market that I'm going to be looking through right now when it comes to Kayshon Boutte. The next player is another receiver. I would say it's a pretty trendy sell. His profile really kind of skews in one direction, which is going to be probably a consummate sell now in terms of his fantasy production because of how he scores. But it's Jamison Williams from the Detroit Lions. Right now he does have 289 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, 9.7 points fantasy points per game. But again, let's start the X fantasy points per game, 8.7, a full point lower. So it's really just a spike week guy, and we've kind of known that about James Williams. And the data so far this year, you look at some of the analytical profile on playerprofile.com, it does kind of speak to a guy that might not be consistent, might be super volatile. His target separation isn't really all that strong. His explosive rating's there, but again, that's just because he makes those big plays. He does make explosive plays, and again, like last week, an over 50 this week against the Bucks, over 52.5. These are the weeks you play. a guy like James Williams. So if you want to wait a week to sell, you're gambling. You're gambling, but it might pay off for you. But again, just looking at some of these stats here, um, his yards per route run 1.66, pretty low despite a guy who does have some skill. I'm not doubting it. Just that his role in this offense, his fantasy points per route run 0.33. It's just not a consistent analytical profile. So I'm looking to move on. And luckily for the guys and gals who drafted James Williams, he does have some juice. There is some juice in terms of his value on the trade market. I think you could use Jameson Williams to slightly tier up, try to catch somebody slipping, maybe a guy who we project to be better rest of season, but maybe is in a little bit of a lull, so the market's kind of down, or maybe you have to add a small piece to get it done. But a guy like a Jordan Addison, coming off a bye, can you get T. Higgins, who really looked better last week? Now you're gonna have to get it done quick. He plays Thursday Night Football. But 11 points last week. Maybe he starts to see more production on the surface with Joe Flacco, or another guy, maybe Quentin Johnston, who missed last week but is having a pretty good season. Maybe the person who rosters QJ is just looking like, man, I need a win now, and maybe I just should I win? I need to win now, or I can't deal with another injury. Maybe this is the QJ Cliff that we have come to know and love over the years. You kind of pounce on one of these players here, kind of tier up in terms of production. If that's not available, if that just doesn't really fit your roster construction as of right now, you could also go after a pretty good running back who might see some deflated value in the market. I'm thinking of guys like R.J. Harvey, who's still stuck behind J.K. Dobbins, but at some point could be that quintessential league winner. He's got the talent. He's going to have the situation we predict at some point this year. A guy like Chase Brown, who does have the situation, who's just not firing. I mean, he doesn't have a breakaway run on the season. His longest run's 11 yards. Is just it hasn't been good ever since Joe Burrow went down for Chase Brown, but he's still the starter. He's getting a lot of touches. The usage, the snap share, all those numbers are high for a guy like Chase Brown. By now, before it starts to take off, there was some lows last year too, so it can happen. And then I got a guy like Travis Etienne, who started hot, but has slowed out off these last couple weeks. Including a primetime game on Monday night. All eyes on deck game for Travis Etienne. He's kind of been a bit shitty in terms of fantasy production these last couple weeks, but again, a guy that you would be willing to put as your running back 2 or a flex spot week in and week out. The people that we will see spike weeks just like Jameson Williams. So I'm looking to move on in either of those two archetypes for a guy like Jameson Williams. The next guy on the time bomb list, or the sell now candidates, Travis Kelce, tight end for the Chiefs. Again, despite his elderly age in the NFL, playing at a ripe 36. Shout out, also congratulations, Killer Trav. Getting engaged, getting married to Taylor Swift, but the numbers are pretty good on the surface. 12 fantasy points per game, tight end 8 on a points per game basis, tight end 5 overall. So there still is some shine on the name, but we're going to start right there where we always do, at the expected fantasy points per game versus the fantasy points per game. 12 points per game, as I mentioned. His expected fantasy points per game is down at 10.8, so not terrible, still 7th. But we're looking at a player that... It's been good, but we weren't trusting at the beginning of the year. It's looked better. So this is now as a chance to capitalize. And when you look at the analytical profile, it's not terrible because tight end is not good. It's just not really all that exciting overall. But we're kind of nitpicking here because the yards per run has fallen over the years. We're seeing less and less target separation. And then, of course, Rashee Rice returns as early as this week. So we are looking at a big variable being entered into the Chiefs' offense. And do they get a running back? Do they add to this? It just, with all this uncertainty for Travis Kelce, there is a scenario in which I really want to capitalize. Now, if you are a roster where you have Travis Kelce and you're happy, you don't really care, you just want to let it sit there because he's been good, that's fine. You can hold on to the time bomb. I understand, but I don't advise it. I may not be a financial advisor, but I'm a fantasy football advisor, and I'm the authentic one, and I'm being honest because Travis Kelce is one of my favorite players, and I think now is a great time to move off because we are seeing the surface production, the fantasy points on the surface being there enough for your casual gamer to be, all right, let me get Travis Kelce. And this is the real scenario that I'm playing with Kelce. I think this is the best way to capitalize in redraft is using the tier down approach. Shout out Mike. So you take Travis Kelce, you get another tight end that would be considered a lesser tier. You're going to see, using the ESPN app or Sleeper app, you're going to see that he scored less points. You're going to see that he's a lower guy on the rankings overall. So that is going to be your tier down opportunity. But we all know tight ends aren't always that valuable. So you can tier down and then grab a second piece on top of it, whether it be, just a bye week filler or back end flex play. You can accrue value even in redraft, tiering down with a player like Travis Kelce and looking, like I said, at the analytics decline, looking at the situation becoming potentially more murky. Now seems like a great time before people are reminded of, the love fest that was Patrick Mahomes and Rashee Rice when Rashee Rice played. Some trades, using the trade market, indicators out there. Something I think is doable is, a Jatavian Sanders plus Rachaad Bateman. Can you get that done? Can you get Mark Andrews but get Trey Tucker, whose stock is on the way up? Can you go a little bit further, get a Juwan Johnson and get a running back? You could start like a guy like Ramondre Stevenson or Isaiah Pacheco. Again, we're not looking for massive difference makers as a second piece. That's a bit unrealistic. What we're looking for is building our roster, making it, building up the depth, getting us ready through these bye weeks, helping us get through these injuries. Because in redraft, you don't have the luxury or the opportunity to sell draft picks, to sell a dream, to sell hopes and wishes of prospects. You need to be able to, put together some sort of value for the other manager and swap it. You can't just take a whole bunch of Fugazi fun coupons, as I call them, a.k.a. draft picks, and turn it into tangible fantasy points. In redraft, we have to build a value somehow to move it on the market, right? You got to give up some value to get some value. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to bolster up our bye weeks. We're going to bolster up our bench, but we're also going to realize that we can take Travis Kelce and make our roster overall better. So that's what we're going to do with a guy like Travis Kelce. I have one more sell candidate for everybody. And this one is it's a risk, but I do strongly believe we are sitting on a time bomb here with this player for a couple of reasons. So that's why, even though it looks good, in some situations in redraft, I am selling Rachaad White. I will say this right off the top. If he is your starting running back 2 and your next best option, we're talking about like the Bam Knights or the Kendre Millers or the, even lower, or you're dealing with injuries and Rachaad White has been your locked in running back 2, maybe even your running back 1. It's tough to sell. Because you're not really going to be able to exchange the proper value for your team build. So I'm probably holding in that regard. But if you don't need him, if he's in your flex, running back 3 even, this is a great time to potentially bolster your roster for a deep run into the finals and maybe win the whole damn thing. And again, we're going to start with the fantasy points and the fantasy points expected. These numbers are a little bit closer than the other guys I've mentioned so far tonight. But again, we got Bucky Irving looming. And Rachaad White has been a volume monster. I mean, we're seeing a target share pushing 10%. When he's in a starting role, he's seeing 5, 4, 3 targets in these games. He's been so good, but with 23 fantasy points in week 5, 18 fantasy points last week. He's been awesome. But then there's Bucky Irving, and it's really just based on volume, because you look through the efficiencies. It's not great. The juke rate's not all that great. The evaded tackle number isn't great. The explosive numbers aren't great. The breakaway run rate, yards per touch, all these numbers aren't all that exciting. They're not really all that encouraging. There's not much behind them to get excited about, if you know what I'm saying. So if Bucky Irving comes back in the next 2-3 weeks, in the volume craters, you're gonna be sitting with a player that you can't use, you can't trade. Might even be able you have to drop if you're in a pinch. So why not sell? Why not move? You can get a lot for it right now, and you could move him right now for a weekly starter. These are guys that come up to mind. Alvin Kamara, who he hasn't killed it in his own right, but we also know that as long as he's on the field, the volume will be, the opportunity will be there, and touchdowns will always be there. In the receiving game, Kamara hasn't gone away as a receiver. Deebo Samuel's been great. Mike Evans is coming back real soon from injury, and if Boutte is going to be shelved for a couple weeks, there's opportunity for a lot of fantasy points to be scored and started in your lineup in the short term. You might even be able to outkick some of your coverage and really chase like the T. Higgins, some of these other guys that I've mentioned that have high upsides that might have a little bit of deflated value. So there's a lot of opportunity to sell a guy like Rachaad White right now in redraft. So that's again something that we are looking to do in fantasy football is make those sales when you can, strike when the iron's hot. Get out there, make the moves. So that's it. Those are my 5 sell candidates, the time bombs that you need to get off your rosters right now. Bam Knight, Kayshon Boutte, Jamison Williams, Travis Kelce, and Rachaad White. Okay, so that is going to be enough for that clip. So now let's move on to the next segment, the fan segment. If you've been around a while, you know what I'm talking about, the bargain bin. We are going bargain bin shopping, everybody. And then, of course, if you stick around, I will get to each and every one of your questions. I'll make sure that I can, make sure we go through these roster decisions, these lineups questions, these trade questions, whatever you got. They're starred. They're ready to rock and roll after I finish the bargain bin. And if you're new, the bargain bin is a streaming player, a guy that's rostered, in less than 50% of leagues, a guy that you could pick up and start this week. I got a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end. Take a little sip of water before we dive in to the bargain bin. I used to do this every single week, but without Evan, I felt like I should bring it back. The old days are here. We're doing a little bit of the throwbackness. We are, we're doing the dance. Feels good. Like the old days, a little nostalgic, what have you. So let's get into the bargain bin. First, we're going to start with the quarterback position, and folks, you got to get on it ASAP. When you're hearing this, put down your phone or pick up your phone. Wherever you get your app, wherever your app is, get there. Time to make this pickup. Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers is rostered in about 20% of leagues, so he's pretty widely available. But you got to pick him up quick because he does play Thursday night football at Cincinnati. That matchup against Cincinnati is the 10th most advantageous matchup in all of fantasy right now. I mean, he's been. Cincinnati presents a great opportunity for a guy like Rodgers or any quarterback to score a bunch of points. And Vegas thinks the Steelers will score on Thursday night. They got a 24.25 implied team total, which is top 10 on the slate. It hasn't been great for Rodgers throughout, but we have gotten a solid floor. And we have seen a spike week. We saw him finish as QB7 in week 1. He's been, no less than QB24 on a per game basis. We've seen him push 20 points multiple times. The touchdowns have, he's got 3 games of multiple touchdowns. He's keeping the picks pretty much under wraps. 3 of them came in 2 games, but other than that, he's been pretty spotless. And the analytical profile has some encouraging signs just in terms of being able to be capable at his age to still produce at a favorable level for us. True completion percentage, red zone completion percentage, those numbers look pretty good. So I do see some opportunity, some left in the old tank for Aaron Rodgers to make some fantasy points, and the matchup is most certainly there. And I have him ranked this week in my weekly ranks, my week 7 ranks, QB 12. So I have him as a top 12 QB play. He's QB 23 on the season, so there's a big difference there. He's got a big jump up based on opportunity and based on just kind of how he's been playing and the weapons that he has and whatnot. So get yourself Aaron Rodgers if you need to replace Lamar Jackson, if you need to replace Josh Allen, if you need to replace even the back end guys, Jake Browning, who was just benched, Russell Wilson, maybe you run him in your super flex leagues. Aaron Rodgers could present a nice opportunity to add and play and, keep you in the right direction, help you get a win here in week number 7. Let's move on to running back. Okay, so if you're new to the bargain bin, guys, running backs, receivers are a little bit deeper in my ranks, a little bit deeper in opportunity. We're really searching for the bargain bin. And of course, if you play DFS, these are probably some cheap options Some guys, maybe you could put them in your lap, squeak them in the back, and pause. Anyway, then either way, let's move on. I'm 12 up here. I got a 12-year-old brain. I just can't not snicker when I say dumb things on accident. Anyway, running backs. Back to it. Lock in. Subscribe. Playerprofile.com. Make sure you like this video. Leave a comment. Who's your bargain bin quarterback of the week? Who's your streamer of the week? All right, let's get back into it. Now refocused, recalibrated. Evan, come back. I need you. Jerome Ford, running back for the Cleveland Browns. That is someone that doesn't sound great, but there's some encouraging signals that are coming off of the profile, coming off the opportunity here. So Jerome Ford, he's about 25% rostered across platforms, so he's pretty readily available. This week, the Browns take on the Miami Dolphins, and the Miami Dolphins are the 7th most advantageous matchup for backs. Last week, Kimani Vidal went absolutely nuclear last week, and I know there wasn't 2 running backs that went nuclear. It was just one, but in the Browns sense, I think there could be enough running back usage. I mean, they use their running backs more than anybody pretty much. I think there's enough there for multiple backs to have a little bit of fun against this bad defense. And then when you look at Jerome Ford, I didn't really realize this because he's kind of been off my radar. But last week he had 8 points. The week before, 5.8. Now, those aren't going to win you weeks. But if there's a touchdown with that type of usage, he was still on the field 40% last week, 36 before. He's getting on the field enough that if he just happens to break one, if he just happens to score a touchdown, that isn't a guy in a pinch that can help you win a week. And last week, 6 targets, 5 receptions. So he is being utilized in this Browns backfield. Got some, encouraging created yards per touch number. So he's still got some left in the tank, and he's still got some. He's still spry, still springy, whatever you want to call it. He's still a bouncy. He's still good at making plays. He's still got that playmaking ability, coursing through his veins. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't know why my brain keeps shutting off. But anyway, Jerome Ford, decent analytic profile in terms of what we're looking for a swing for the fences type play. A guy, did see a number of targets, 6 as recently as last week. Cupcake matchup. I have Jerome Ford at running back 39. So, again, not going to necessarily melt faces. But if you're in an absolute pinch, this is where I'm going. I think Jerome Ford is a sneaky play this week in fantasy football. Let's get the receiver here. So, I'm going to be a little bit bendy with the rules. Okay, so I'm going to offer not 1, not 2, but 3 potential bargain bin players. Where I'm going to start is in Tampa Bay. And why I'm going to start in Tampa Bay is because there's a, pardon me, Francois. Is that how you say it? Pardon my French. But there's a shitload of wide receiver injuries. Boutte set to miss a couple of games. We don't know if Mike Evans is going to return, if Chris Godwin is going to return. So if one or both are out, I'm okay with a pick your poison scenario. Pick Tez Johnson or Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard feels like he has a little bit higher floor. Tez Johnson probably has the higher ceiling. Hell, even, there, and I guess who you choose comes down to how you play fantasy, whether you're more risk averse or if maybe you are playing the number 1 team in the league and you score a shitload of points. You can take that approach based on how your team, because at the end of the day, Tez Johnson has done damn close to nothing on the season, but in these past 2 weeks, it's at least he scored 11 fantasy points last week, 10 fantasy points the week before. It's not complete nothing. And then Sterling Shepard has been there, the consummate pro. Will fit, the over the middle type stuff, up the seams type stuff. So we'll probably see more targets. But Tez Johnson, without Chris Godwin or Mike Evans or Emeka Boutte, could see 6 targets. Catch probably only 3 or 4, but that could go for 75 yards and a touchdown. That can go for 85 yards and a touchdown. Hell, that could go for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns based on Baker Mayfield and based on this matchup. They take on the Lions. And the Lions are the 5th most advantageous matchup for wide receivers in fantasy football. And there's a 52.5 over-under. when you're bargain bin shopping, when you're looking for streamers, attack the games that Vegas believes are going to have a ton of fantasy points, because that is where we see outliers occur. That's when we see a bunch, all these players score. This is where we see a tight end score that doesn't typically get a lot of volume. This is where we see the big time players get enough targets to make big plays, where they can go nuclear. So if those guys are out, I'm going with either Tez Johnson or Sterling Shepard. Right now in my ranks, assuming Godwin and Mike Evans are both absent from this, potential shootout with Detroit, I got TJ at wide receiver 32 and Sterling Shepard at wide receiver 36. And the third, you might be asking yourself, you said you had 3. I do. If they are already picked up, because they were kind of the hot waiver wire ads, so you might just be behind a day or two, might not have the ability to pick them up, even though they're both pretty much widely available. But again, if you're in a more sharper league, they're going to be picked up. Try Luke McCaffrey. Luke McCaffrey has double digits multiple times in the last few weeks. And even with Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, all those guys on the field, he's played good enough and has been explosive enough that I want a guy who's had some chemistry built with the quarterback in a game that, again, has a super high over-under. And there's a lot of, the Commanders have one of the highest Vegas implied team totals on the entire slate. So a guy like Luke McCaffrey could only see 3 targets, but maybe he catches 2 of them for 45 yards and a touchdown. Get you 11 fantasy points. That's going to look real good in that flex spot when you are just, really kind of struggling for any type of excitement right now. We're in the dog days. We're seeing a ton of injuries, a record number of injuries, and we are seeing bye weeks to teams. Over the last 3 weeks, a lot of bye week have come and gone with, super relevant fantasy players on those rosters. And again, Bills, Ravens off the deck. There's a lot of guys absent in week 7. So if we're looking for a receiver, look no further than either Tampa Bay or head up north a little bit and go to Washington and pick up Luke McCaffrey. That's what I'm doing. I'm not pumped about it, but again, these are the chances you take when you're streaming. And at tight end, probably the most important position here. When I used to go through the bargain bin each and every week, it was the most important because there are a lot of people who stream tight ends out there. I'm taking a sip of water. Talking too much. Anyway, the tight end position was so valuable for hitting the bargain bin because people stream them. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of you can cash in quite a bit, on a weekly basis with a lot of luck and watching the game plan, obviously. So without further ado, let's get into tight ends. Again, I'm so long-winded. Evan, come back. We're going to go to New York, and we are going to stream Mason Taylor, rookie for the Jets. Carolina is the second most advantageous matchup for tight ends in fantasy football. Taylor, despite being a pretty hot waiver wire ad just a couple weeks ago, he's still only rostered in about 30% of leagues in the popular platforms. So there's opportunity for him to be out there. Maybe he was dropped after being added. I know I picked him up and dropped him in a couple leagues. So if he's out there, I'm looking to pick him up because, again, looking back over these last few weeks, we saw some pretty big weeks from Mason Taylor. 7 targets, 5 catches, 65 yards, 11.5 fantasy points, 12 targets, 9 catches, 67 yards, and 17.7 fantasy points. Week 5 against Dallas. Good opportunity against the Carolina Panthers. Maybe no Garrett Wilson this week. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for volume. And, the analytical profile hasn't been great, but he's a rookie and the volume is there. And sometimes at tight end, you'll chase that volume over the efficiencies. Vegas doesn't love this game to be high scoring, and they certainly don't love the Jets to score a lot of fantasy points. But, again, if he sees 10 targets, 12 targets like he did 2 weeks ago, catches 9 of them for 50 yards, you're already cashing in. You're already looking at a tight end that's going to finish inside the top 12, top 10. So that's good enough to stream. Now, again, if he's not available and you need a tight end, maybe you are kind of looking for something after losing Brock Bowers over these last couple weeks, or you are back-to-back losing Dalton Kincaid, whatever it is. If you're looking for a tight end, you can't get Taylor. Other options, Chigo Okonkwo, Noah Fant, if you can get him before Thursday Night Football, now with Mike Gesicki on the shelf, and Cade Otton. Again, just in the same philosophy of chasing the evaded targets that Godwin, Igbokwe, and Evans would warrant, chasing that with Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard. You could also chase it with Kayshon. So those are 4 potential streaming options at tight end and in fantasy football for week 7. Don't age it, week 7. Now, you guys have been sticking around. You guys are awesome. If you want a question answered, get ready to. I'm gonna answer them all. If you don't, we have a question. You're ready to go for the rest of the night. Peace. We got the bargain bin. We got cells. I did it for you guys. Okay. So now it's time for the fantasy managers that stuck around. Let's answer these dang questions, shall we? So, first one. Let's get it going. Holding, Barkley, Judkins, Jalen Warren, Swift, Kimani Vidal, Kendra Miller, and Chuba. You have Drake London and JSN as prime. Okay, great. Okay, Ruckus, your team's awesome. Humble brag. Need to be sure up that. Oh yeah, I need to shore up that wide receiver 3. Who's my target? Could you sell Barkley and Warren for Jefferson? Yeah, swing for the fences. Absolutely swing for the fences. Yeah, I'm looking to swing for the fences here. You got JSN, you got London. Now, if you can get a third Dragon, you could really take over this league. And you got to keep one of these starting, running backs on a weekly basis. You got to keep one of Judkins, Warren, or Barkley. Oh, you got Swift too. I missed Swift, so you got to keep one, 100%, because you got to anchor that running back position down. But you have enough depth here. Chuba, oh my God. So yeah, you are pretty rocked up. I would take basically any one of those running backs, maybe even 2. Or if you have any other valuable wide receivers, you swing for the fences and really just let the opportunity come to you. Don't force someone to take on Jalen Warren. They don't want Warren, they want Barkley, but they're willing to sell Jefferson. Yeah, that's the type of move I'm looking to make. Really kind of grab a hold of one of these wide receivers is going to make a massive difference. If you can even, if it's possible to get even Amon-Ra, if the Puka Nacua roster is in absolute shambles right now, if he misses, you could swing for the fences, and that's something you definitely got to look to do. JSN or CD Lamb rest of season PPR. JSN. CD Lamb's going to be great. I have no issues with CD Lamb when he returns, but it is going to be semi tough for Dak in that offense to put George Pickens back on the shelf. He's been so good. He's going to warrant probably more targets than projected coming into the season, and that alone is going to be the differentiator because JSN, his separation numbers, his yards per out run, his target share, they're unrivaled. It's him and Puka, and there's like no one even close after that. So for me, I'm going JSN rest of the season. I think he is now here. He might be the new captain of the fantasy world, where we've had Jamar Chase, we've had Justin Jefferson, now we have Puka Nacua, no doubt, but we might now have JSN on that tier with CeeDee Lamb too. So I'm going with the guy who's healthier. I'm going to go with JSN rest of season. PPR redraft, I got another one for you, G-Hop. Traded Breece Hall and Dallas Goedert for Gibbs, and the tight ends now are Kittle and Higbee. Picked one of them up in case. You also have Isaiah Davis on the bench. Is that a win? Absolute dub. Absolute dub. That's a great way to use that tight end, leverage that tight end, and kind of really, you're not losing much value. If Kittle's back, you have a better tight end in that position. And I like Breece Hall, but for me, he's more of a dynasty target as opposed to redraft. This situation is caca poo poo, no good. In New York, you hate running backs that offenses can't keep the ball moving. They don't get first downs, and also that Vegas just keeps slapping them week after week after week with low implied totals. It sucks to have a running back that. And I know Breece Hall does catch the ball, so there is upside, but he's got to look for a situation change, and I don't chase that in redraft. That's more of a dynasty philosophy for me. So yeah, great trade, G-Hop, great trade. Josh Jacobs for Lamb, yes, I love Josh Jacobs. I am assuming, though, my man Infinite Pilot, that you have some sort of replacement. Obviously, no one's probably not someone as good as Jacobs, but I'm hoping you picked up a Scatabo early. I'm hoping you drafted a guy like Travis Etienne, or picked up Bill, or you picked up Rico Dowdle, Jordan Mason. There's a bunch of these running back options that have come up. If you have any of those that can help solidify this roster, yeah, I think overall my philosophy is kind of grabbing upside receivers, elite receivers over the running backs, especially in Dynasty, but even in redraft. You want the guy that can absolutely save you a week, and a guy like CeeDee Lamb can do that. And if he comes back, I mean, the matchup looks great already. He's probably going to slide right into a top 12 matchup if he gets the volume. It does hurt to see Jacobs go, but I'm okay doing it in redraft, and in Dynasty, definitely doing it. I'm always moving my running backs for high-end wide receivers. It's just more predictable. You can kind of find these running backs year to year. I mean, hell, if you just use a little bit extra fab than the next guy, you got Kimani Vidal in the short term. There's a lot of options there. So if you have an option, yeah, I think in a vacuum here, I'm taking Lamb over Jacobs. Will you trade Ladd, Myers, Swift for Nico or Marvin Harrison? Running backs right now are Barkley, Kyron, Javonte with White, Rico for spot starts to him. Okay, London, Sutton, Evans, Terry. If it helps, I never started Myers. You might have trouble right now starting Myers. He is banged up, missed practice. But I think if you can move Swift for Nico or Harrison, I'm doing it. Ladd, I might just keep Ladd. I think Swift of these three options would be the one I would do because I think you're good at running back. Barkley, Kyron, Javonte's great. Rico, Dowdle, Rachaad White, great stashes. If you can sell high on a Rachaad White, I talked about that early in the show, do that. But yeah, if you can move Swift for Nico Harrison or Marvin Harrison, Nico Collins or Marvin Harrison, I'm definitely doing it for either. My preferred option is Nico. I'm grabbing Nico coming off a bye. If he's got a little bit of lull in the value, I think his biggest weeks are yet to come. So if you can move Swift for Nico, go into each game with, London, Sutton, Nico, Javonte, Kyron, Barkley, chef's kiss, Mr. Ortiz. That is a hell of a ball club you'd put together. Travion Henderson, Trey Harris, and Jalen Royals or McCaffrey. So I don't know the context here. So if we're talking about just this week, I'm going to go Travion of all these guys. I think the opportunity is there. If we're going Dynasty, I'm going Travion Henderson. I don't know what the list could potentially be where I would take anyone other than Travion. So let me get some context. I can help you out there, but pretty much Travion is the answer no matter what. Unless that's Christian McCaffrey, then Christian McCaffrey will always and forever be the answer in fantasy football. Cole. All right, man. I was just offered Breece Hall for Vidal and Hampton. Should I accept? So you're moving Hampton and Vidal for Breece Hall? Yes. Yes, do that. Do that, whether it be Dynasty. Actually, in Dynasty, it's a little bit tougher. But probably not in Dynasty, actually, I think about it. In redraft, hell yeah. Because we don't know when Marion Hampton's going to come back. Even if it's a month, he comes back after that. Breece Hall can have been a massive helper in helping you get these wins. And I know I just mentioned some of the down things of Breece in redraft, but in this landscape, yeah. So you're basically just moving the Chargers situation for Breece Hall. I'm okay doing that. I think that's tearing up big time. Breece Hall, each and every week, he's inside my top 12. I'm at running back 12, even in a tougher matchup. The opportunity is always there. We've seen the explosiveness. It's just a matter of can they just get the volume going his way. And with Garrett Wilson out potentially this week, could he get a few more passes? I think now's a good time to get Breece Hall for this type of return. Now, of course, in when we were talking about Breece this last time, we were talking about just tearing up Jahmyr Gibbs. So I think the philosophy is there for both. But in this situation, yes, trading for Breece Hall makes a hell of a lot of sense, Cole. Trade Bucky or Genty for Javonte, 6-0, and also have Rachaad White. In Dynasty, I'm not trading either for Javonte. Being 6-0 feels like you're pretty damn good. You also, I don't think I would. I would need a kicker. If it's Javonte plus, which that manager might not want to do because Javante's been so good, but Bucky's going to return, and you have his, Rashaad's been awesome without him, so you're good there. That's a starter. Ginty, you could make the argument you get Javonte over Ginty rest of season. I do have Javonte over Ginty this week. So it's still early enough. Maybe you can kind of leverage his ADP and hit the hype and the profile enough to get a small second piece if you can. Yeah, I'm doing it, but now that I talk about it here, Ginty for Javonte seems like a slick move because you are covered on the Tampa Bay side of things. You're 6-0, so you got the good team. You're looking for the big boom, and the big boom of the year could end up being Javonte. Yeah, go Javonte. Let me actually hold on. Give me one second. Just let me clarify one thing. This is not great for our audio listeners, but if you are listening on the podcast and you've listened through the questions, you are the real one. Thank you. Shout out to you. But of course, we're here live. YouTube Wednesday nights. Come out, come hang, get your questions answered. Usually it's me and Evan, but this week it's just me. Evan's sick, feel better, or he's playing hooky to watch the Mariners game in the ALCS. Again, something I do understand. If the Red Sox was here, maybe the flu would have cascaded across both of our shows. I don't know. But I've blabbled on enough, and I have now finally done the research that I was looking to do rest of the season. Yeah, Ginty's scheduled to end at Philly, at Houston against the Giants. It's not great. It's not like So yeah, I think I've talked myself into that. I think I have talked myself. Ginty, I would move Ginty for Javonte, but try to get a little bit of a secondary piece. Why not? Kendra Miller worth holding on to. I need a defense for the week. I have Kamara as well. Other options to drop are RJ Harvey and Ramondre. So basically we're dropping, and I'm assuming you have an elite defense, so you cannot drop that defense. That would still be my number one option. I'd keep all of these running backs, drop a defense for a defense. But if you just want to keep that defense that you are holding on to, must be Buffalo, I'm assuming. Or you're doing the slick thing I like to do sometimes too, when you drop the defense after the season, pick up someone off waivers, and then make your decision later before the lineup, which is a cool move. I like doing that in redraft. So basically, the question is, do you drop Harvey, Ramondre, or Kendre Miller this week? I'm not dropping Ramondre. The matchup's juicy on paper. If he continues to get the lion's share of the touches, it could be a big week for him. I'm not dropping RJ Harvey because I think you could come to regret him the most out of everyone on this list. So I'm going to drop Kendre Miller. So again, option number 1, drop defense for defense. Option number 2, drop Kendre Miller of these backs. Trade Olave and ETN for Lamb in redraft. Yes. Tyler, has anyone told you look like Jack Black? And again, for our audio listeners, you're not going to get the reference, but Tyler, did anyone tell you kind of look like Bowser there? But this is a great example of tearing up in redraft and really kind of what I call you fatten your roster early and then you sharpen the sword throughout the year. This is a great example of sharpening your sword. Olave came at a bit of a discount in ADP. So did Travis Etienne. So theoretically, these guys aren't your pillar pieces in this redraft run. But Lamb will be that. I do like Olave. I love the target share that he's getting. I love the opportunity. I love his role in the offense. So it's not that I'm against Chris Olave this year, but it's getting a guy like CeeDee Lamb in redraft will make a huge difference. So Tyler, that's a good move. Olave and Etienne, pull it off, make the move. Superflex, both Kyler Murray and Brock Purdy healthy. They're up in the air this week. Who's the best stash? Mac Jones or Jacoby Brissett? I think it's Jones. I think Jones has showed it in enough games. Jacoby Brissett has shown it in one, and he's kind of done this throughout his career where he has a game and then falls off an absolute cliff. Mac Jones last week wasn't great, but in the weeks prior, he showed competent enough for this offense. This offense is going to get healthier. Pearsall might come back. Kittle is rumored to be back very, very soon. Ayuk could be back within a month. And if they decide that Brock Purdy needs to be set aside for remainder of the season or, up until the playoff time because they really want him healthy, what have you, Mac Jones, I think, has the higher upside. I would go with Mac Jones as a stash for sure. Just a few more questions, and then I'll let you guys get out of this beautiful Wednesday night. Again, thank you guys so much for hanging out here at the Gameplay. Make sure you subscribe to the Player Profile YouTube channel. Subscribe also to the Player Profiler Now Plus channel. Like this video, leave a comment, keep it going, keep it growing. Rico or Fredal, full PPR. Give me Rico. If Hubbard is out, if Hubbard is back, if Hubbard's on the field, it's still Rico. Rico's been unbelievable. I'm going to chase this Jay Ajayi run until it wipes out, so give me Rico Dowdle. Running back room in shambles. I have to start Dowdle as my running back 2. Need some hopium for starting Dowdle. If Dowdle has been so good that there is just little to no chance that Hubbard comes back and just pushes him aside completely. Is it a 50-50 split? Maybe. But if Dowdle runs hot, they're going to let him run with it. I mean, 200 yards from scrimmage has been unbelievable. They've won these games that he's been hot in. If you're the Carolina Panthers, and I do believe that Canales is a good enough head coach, if you're the Carolina Panthers, you cannot play with fire here. You want to give Hubbard his due. Yeah, you got an extension, but these extensions can be worked around. These extensions sometimes can be a bit fugazi if you look deeper. And Dowdle, even if he isn't on a guaranteed contract long term, I mean, this run has been unbelievable. And I think at this point here, you're looking at it like if you bench Dowdle and he goes for 27 fantasy points again, like you're just gonna feel a sick stomach. You're gonna feel sick to your stomach. So the thing about Dowdle right now, and believe me, I feel you guys on this. His projections are not high, and sometimes when your projections aren't high, you see that meter on Sleeper, or you look at the projections on ESPN, and you're like, am I gonna lose? I don't care about that with this week. For me, Dowdle's an absolute start. He's in a lot of flex spots. Leave him there because he was such a free 99 addition in the season. Or if he's your running back too, G-Hop. I'm starting him. You can win. He can wreck it up for one more week, even if Chuba Hubbard comes back. PPR in redraft, should I send Judkins for London? I know that's usually an instant accept, but my wide receivers are way stronger than running backs. Gibbs, Judkins, Benson, Marks, Vidal, JSN, Rice, BTJ, Olave, Evans. I'm not doing it. In a vacuum, in Dynasty, I would do this, Ulysses, but in redraft, no, I'm not doing this. I'm going to keep Judkins. Gibbs, Judkins is a really good 1-2 punch. They're both top 5 running backs for my Week 7 ranks. And then your receivers, JSN, BTJ, Olave, are probably crushing. You have Evans and Rice on the return. Would London, JSN, Rice, BTJ be awesome? But what you would end up doing, which if you're okay with this, if you're an active manager like me and you're fine grinding, then you make this move, get London, and then you take whoever is kind of becoming the odd man out, Olave, BTJ, Rice, in a week or two, and then you're just trying to buy back into a running back. Sometimes this can be advantageous in redraft because you can evade injuries that way by trading the running back when he's healthy and then just buying a healthy running back when you need it. So if you want to kind of run the short term with Vidal, you could make that move. And then, so to make a short answer long, Ulysses, here's what I do. If you're willing to do the work, yes, I'm pulling the trigger on Judkins for London. And then in a couple weeks, you're going to be taking one of these these receivers and trying to basically undo the running back trade that you made. But if you don't want to do all that work, I totally understand staying pat. Your team's good, but you could, having JSN, London plus one of those guys emerge, and then someone else being traded for a healthy version of a running back 3 weeks. I'm not saying Judkins won't be, but they can't get hurt if you're trading for a healthy guy going into a week. You know what I'm saying? So, if you want to do the work, do the work. 1-5 and made some trades in my current team is Hurts, Odunze, Nico, Amon-Ra, Brian Thomas, Keenan, Hampton, Judkins, Kamara, Woody, Ramondre, Harvey, Kendre Miller, Tucker, Mason. What to do? At this point, if you're 1-5 in redraft, brother, you just got to put everyone on the block and just see what deals you can make. I don't really know why you're maybe just unlucky. So if you want to just keep running it out there, I don't know. This team's pretty good. It feels like I am looking at it. It's been down weeks, so you've kind of just might not have had all these guys kind of pop off together. But it seems like getting a running back. I don't know. This kind of sucks. This sucks. It just seems like a bad luck thing. If you want to just Juju, just make a Juju switch. Just kind of just swap bodies for bodies. Try to get the feng shui going. 1-5. This team doesn't look like a 1-5 team. So at this point, you're just kind of looking for try to see what you can get on the trade market. And I know it's kind of a vague answer, but this team should be good. And if you didn't say you're 1-5, I'd say just kind of stay pat. I like the players. It just seems like you've been super unlucky. Should I trade James Cook and Zay Flowers for Rome and Bucky? 2-4 in a 14-man league with 18 playoffs. So you're pushing for one of those last playoff spots? No, I'm not making this trade. You do get Rome this week, and you need a win early rather than late. So there is that point to be made. But I think in a vacuum, I'm not doing it because I think Cook has been as good as Bucky Irving, and I think Flowers isn't as good as Rome. But when Lamar comes back, Flowers is going to be a pretty good player. But again, if you need that win now, and you kind of do need short-term wins, I've talked myself into it. Make the trade. You have Rome this week. You won't have James Cook or Zay Flowers this week, so they're automatically out of your roster. Rome goes into your roster. Bucky's not in it yet, but next week, if you get this win and you're 3-4, Bucky comes back a week from now or 2 weeks. If you're back to 500, that's how you can get the ball rolling. So Ben, make that move. No, you to Kang. Oh, some more context. Thanks, Ben. Jaden, Goff, Cook, Gibbs, K9. Yeah, make that trade. Yeah, absolutely make that trade. Because then you'd have London, St. Brown, and Odunze this week with Daniels, who's my quarterback 1. You would be able to start Gibbs and K9 this week, or and then you're kind of off to the races once Bucky comes back. Having Cook, you have Gibbs, Bucky, you'll have Rome. Yeah, make the trade. Definitely make the trade. Start 2 PPR. Kyron, Javonte, or Bill. I'm leaving Bill off the list. I'm killing Bill here. I'm going to go with Kyron. I'm going Javonte. Kyron's coming in at running back 10 in London, baby. And Javonte in that absolute banger of a game against the Commanders. I got him at running back 7. So I am sitting Bill, even though I'm hoping for a game like Bill. As the bargain bin master, how would you rank these running back stashes in PPR? Ray Davis, Isaiah Davis, Rachaad Smith, Manungai, Caleb Johnson, and Ford. So if you need someone this week, I like Ford. Ray Davis obviously is on bye. But just in a vacuum, we'll talk about rest of season. I would rank these guys as stashes. I would probably have it where I would go Ray Davis 1, Isaiah Davis 2 probably, Kyle Manungai 3, Jerome Ford 4, Rachaad Smith 5, and Caleb Johnson 6. If it's Dynasty, I like those last two guys, Rachaad Smith and Caleb Johnson more, but we keep hoping for Rachaad Smith playing games, and it seems more likely that they make a trade for running back than they insert Rachaad Smith into a meaningful role. Whereas, James Cook goes down, Ray Davis fired up, Breece Hall goes down, Isaiah Davis fired up, Kyle Manungai, if Swift goes down, fired up. Ford, we've seen him be productive with Quinshon Judkins, without Quinshon Judkins in the beginning of the year, so I think he's worth keeping around. And then, of course, it's just like, if something happens to Pacheco, you still have Kareem Hunt to worry about if you're Rachaad Smith. If it just seems like a more unlikely situation, and for whatever reason, the Steelers absolutely hate Caleb Johnson. So he's the last guy. Should I trade Zay, Goddard, and Golden for Tyler Warren and BTJ? You got DK and Debo. Hell yeah. Hell yes, I'm doing this trade. And guess what? I'm doing this trade in Dynasty or Redraft, because in Dynasty, Golden has a little bit more value, but Warren and BTJ are going to be massive buys. BTJ is coming off a massive game. The clock to buy is probably falling, it's probably taking off. That's how you say it. It's probably running out, is the way you should say. So Zay, it feels like you're cashing in. It's still a little bit high. Goddard, you're definitely taking advantage and leveraging that top 8 run, that big 30-point game last week or whatever it was, 25-point game, and a guy like Golden who only has promise till, even at this point, for a guy who's proven Tyler Warren is going to be a smasher each and every week. I got Tyler Warren at tight end 3 this week. And then BTJ, you definitely want BTJ. Follow-up question, do you think DK or Zay better? I'm keeping DK. DK right now has kind of just become an efficiency monster with A-Rod. They are rumored to be looking for a wide receiver. Do they get one? I don't know. Either way, DK is going to be more comfortable with Rodgers as opposed to whoever comes in, whether it be Olave or not. And maybe another receiving option just frees up DK to get even more layups from deep. He just makes the tough plays look easy. And a guy like Aaron Rodgers, he's feeding him this week. I love DK on Thursday Night Football. Great matchup against the Bengals. Good Vegas total. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, I like A-Rod, so I like DK over Zay. So if it's either DK or Zay in that trade, send Zay Flowers out, send Goddard, send Golden, get T. Warren, and get BTJ, and make it happen. Last question, I'm going to get out of here tonight. I'm being offered Isaiah Davis and a second for Nick Chubb. My team is not winning the championship this year. Yeah, do it. Do it, because you're in a position now where you want that second. Recouping a second for Nick Chubb, you pretty much have a shelf life. It could run out as early as this week if Woody Marks does it again. So you want to cash in on Nick Chubb, and getting a guy like Isaiah Davis probably doesn't have a whole lot of long-term value in a dynasty sense, but if Breece Hall gets traded or Breece Hall gets hurt, all of a sudden you got an inflation in Isaiah Davis. There's another sell opportunity. Maybe you can get another second. Maybe you can get a third in a player. Maybe you can get a rookie this year who hasn't really gotten that chance. Maybe you can cash in and get a third in Caleb Johnson. There's a lot you could do once Isaiah Davis is awarded more touches. So I'm making that trade, definitely, Adam. Bonus question, would you start Wan'Dale Robinson, Ridley at flex, Wan'Dale Robinson? In full PPR league, would you drop Tajay Spears for J.K. Dobbins? Yes, absolutely. Make that decision. Pick up J.K. Dobbins. You guys are the absolute best. So, again, thank you so much for tuning in, tapping in to the game plan. This is the show, guys, that I want to make sure every fantasy manager out there gets a game plan put together to get those dubs. That's what we're trying to do, win our fantasy matches. Of course, I'm the authentic one, Matty Kiwoom, and you can find me on X at Matty Kiwoom. Of course, subscribe to the Player Profiler YouTube channel. Like this video, leave a comment, get the numbers rolling. And then you can find Evan and I back next Wednesday where we will do this again. So, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, keep game planning, and let's get those Week 7 dubs. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.